If you ever walked into Umueze village before the harmattan breeze brushed the morning dew, you'd hear her laughter before you saw her. Amaka, the girl with the golden voice. She sang as she fetched water, as she swept the square, even as she carried palm fruits to the market. Her laughter healed hearts, her smile could calm quarrels. Everyone loved her. Amaka, my daughter, old Mama Ijai could call from her veranda. You'll make a good wife one day. Amaka would blush and reply, Mama, wife to who? I haven't even found a man who can fry plantain without burning it. The women would laugh. The men would nod. Amaka was beauty and charm stitched into one heart. She cooked for the sick, danced during festivals, and still managed to be first at church every Sunday. But in Umueze, love could hide a storm. It began on a moonless night. The air was heavy, silent, as though the trees were holding their breath. By morning, Mama Ijag's goat, Onioma, was gone. Vanished. The rope still tied to the tree, but the goat. No bleat, no hoofprint. The villagers gathered by her hut. Spirits, someone whispered. The spirits are angry. Poppenwoke, the oldest man in the village, shook his grey head slowly. Spirits. Spirits don't tie knots back like humans do. This is a person's work. Then who? Mama Ijak shouted, hands on her head. Who would steal my Onioma? She just gave birth. Everyone began to murmur. Amaka stepped forward, her eyes soft with concern. Mama, don't cry. I'll help you search. Maybe she wandered near the stream. Her tone was comforting, too comforting, some thought. But no one said it aloud. Who could accuse Amaka? They searched till sunset. No trace. Only the distant echo of a young girl humming near the forest, her song too sweet for suspicion. Days turned into weeks, and the goats kept vanishing. One from here, two from there. Always at night. Always silently. Old women began to whisper as they pounded yam in the evenings. Have you noticed? The goats disappear only after Amaka sings at night. Hush, another warned. That girl has angel's blood. Don't invite curses. But one boy, Ikin, who secretly admired Amaka, decided to watch. That night, from the mango tree near her hut, he waited, eyes wide, heart pounding. He saw her step out, barefoot, wrapped in a red wrapper that shimmered under the moonlight. Her anklets jingled softly as she walked toward the forest. Amaka, he whispered. She turned sharply, eyes glowing faintly, silver, almost. Ikin blinked. When he opened his eyes again, she was gone. The next morning, 2 goats were missing from Okoro's compound. Ikin said nothing. Who would believe him? The festival of light came, a time when Umueze celebrated harvest, peace, and purity. The chief himself crowned Amaka daughter of Umueze. Her beauty shimmered like dawn as she danced with grace that made even the drummers forget their beats. When she smiled, even the chief's wife smiled back through jealousy. As fireworks cracked in the sky, the chief raised his horn of palm wine. Tonight, no sorrow. The gods smile upon us through Amaka. The crowd cheered, singing her name. But that same night, the chief's prize goat, the one he called Obadiah, disappeared. By morning, chaos erupted. The chief roared, whoever took my goat has insulted my ancestors. The people trembled. Yet, as the elders argued, Amaka was seen walking to the market, humming softly, basket on her head, eyes innocent as ever. After the chief's loss, the village appointed a night watchman, Okoro, a one-eyed hunter who feared nothing except his wife's temper. He sat under the big almond tree that night, spear in hand, ears alert. The moon was bright, the village asleep. Around midnight, he heard footsteps, light and rhythmic, like someone dancing on sand. He crouched behind a pot of yam flour and watched. It was Amaka. Her red wrapper glowed faintly, her anklets jingled as she tiptoed behind her own hut, carrying something in her arms, something bleating softly. Amaka, he barked. She froze, turned, and smiled. Papa Okoro, why scare me at this hour? He stepped forward. What are you carrying? A sick goat, she replied calmly. I found it near the bush. I'm taking it to the healer. Her voice was smooth, gentle. Okoro's suspicion wavered. But then, the goat bleated louder, almost like a cry. Before he could move, a gust of cold wind swept between them. The lantern went out. Amaka, he shouted again. Silence. Only the sound of her anklets fading into the forest. By morning, Okoro's own goat, his last one, was gone. He told the elders, but they laughed. Amaka. You must be dreaming, the chief said. That girl wouldn't harm a fly. But Okoro swore on his hunting knife. I saw her with my own eye. If I lie, may the spirits take my other one. Still, no one believed him. That evening, Amaka visited his hut with a calabash of soup. Papa Okoro, I heard about your missing goat. Sorry, eh? The gods will return it. He stared at her, her perfect smile, her calm tone. Something about her eyes seemed deeper, darker. She turned to leave, her anklets jingling again. And as she disappeared down the path, Okoro muttered to himself, if that girl isn't human, then the gods themselves are thieves. That night, the wind carried laughter through Umueze, a woman's laughter, soft but haunting. And by dawn, another goat was gone. But still, no one suspected Amaka. After all, how could the most beloved girl in Umueze possibly be the village's silent thief? It started with the smoke. Every dawn, a thin grey line curled up from the forest's edge, drifting like a whisper toward the sky. No one knew where it came from, but goats kept vanishing. Mama Ijike was the first to notice. Smoke again, she said one morning, pointing with her chewing stick. And every time it rises, someone cries about a missing goat. Papa Nwok frowned. Maybe hunters cook there. But the hunter, Obina, shook his head. No hunter cooks before sunrise. That evening, the men gathered with cutlasses, following the smoke's trail. The path wound deep into the forest until they reached a small clearing near the river. There, among ashes and bones, was a blackened pot still warm, and inside it, pieces of roasted meat. Goat, Obina whispered. Fresh goat. Fear gripped them. Who would dare cook here? Another muttered. Just then, Amaka's laughter floated from a distance, light, melodic, drifting through the trees. Everyone froze. Papa Nwok swallowed hard. We mustn't speak of this yet, he said. Not until we're sure what we heard. A week later, a stranger came to Umueze, a tall, quiet hunter from across the river. He carried a charm bag and spoke little. His name was Odinigbo. At the marketplace, he told the elders, I'm tracking something strange, not an animal, not a spirit. Something between both. The chief frowned. What do you mean? Odinigbo's eyes darkened. I've seen her. A girl in a red wrapper, walking through the forest with goats following her like servants. She hums, and they obey. The crowd gasped. That sounds like Amaka, someone shouted. Amaka, who had been buying peppers nearby, turned and smiled gently. Hunter, you dream too much. Do I look like someone goats obey? Her laughter filled the air, breaking the tension. The woman laughed too, embarrassed for believing even for a second. But Odinigbo didn't laugh. I know what I saw, he said quietly. She's marked by something older than this village. That night, As he sharpened his knife by the fire, he murmured, "If she's cursed, the river will show it soon." And far away, Amaka sat by her window, staring at the moon, whispering to herself, "He shouldn't have followed me." For weeks, Odinigbo watched her. Sometimes he saw her at dawn, collecting herbs near the riverbank. Other times, she would vanish into the mist and reappear hours later, her eyes distant, her feet muddy. But what no one knew was that Amaka was meeting someone. His name was Namdi, tall, soft-spoken, and never seen in the village during daylight. Some said he lived beyond the river, others whispered he was not of this world. Every night, he waited beneath the ancient udala tree. "My love," he would whisper when she arrived. "You shouldn't come tonight." "I must," she replied, trembling. "The craving is back. I can't fight it anymore." "Then let me help you." She shook her head. "You don't understand. When the moon turns full, I stop being me. The goats, they come to me. I don't even call them. They just come." He held her close. "Then let's run away, far from this cursed place." Tears glistened in her eyes. "You don't run from the river, Namdi. It follows you." They didn't know Odinigbo was hiding in the shadows, watching, listening, heart-pounding as he realized this was no ordinary love story. The next morning, the chief's patience snapped. "My own goats have vanished again," he shouted at the village square. "This insult has gone too far." He ordered every hut searched, from the poorest to the richest. When his guards reached Amaka's house, she smiled politely. "You're welcome to search," she said, stepping aside. "If you find anything, I'll carry the shame." They searched every corner, nothing but folded clothes, clay pots, and a Bible. "She's clean," one guard said. The villagers clapped and praised her honesty. Amaka even joined the search team, going from house to house, consoling those who lost their animals. "Don't worry, Mama Ejaik," she said softly. "Your goats will come back. Maybe they just lost their way." But deep down, she knew they wouldn't. Not this time. Because that night, her reflection in the mirror spoke back. "It's almost time," it whispered in her own voice. "The river is calling again." It was the thunderstorm that exposed her secret. That night, lightning split the sky, setting the forest ablaze for a few heartbeats. Two boys, Ikena and Chijiok, ran after the glowing streaks, hoping to find burnt firewood to sell. But what they found instead stopped their hearts. There, behind a cluster of palm trees, was a cave hidden by vines. Smoke trickled from within. They crept closer and peeked inside. Goat skins hung from the walls like trophies. Pots of bones, feathers, and melted candles littered the ground. A red wrapper, Amaka's wrapper, hung beside a half-burnt goat head. "Yezu!" Chijiok gasped. "It's her. Amaka!" Before they could run, a soft voice echoed behind them. "What are you doing here?" They turned, and there she was. Amaka, standing in the rain, her eyes reflecting the lightning. "We saw the smoke," Ikena stammered. "We didn't mean." Amaka smiled faintly. "Curiosity kills more than cats in this village." "Amaka, you're the one stealing the goats?" Chijiok blurted out. Her smile faded. "You wouldn't understand. Try us." She sighed, rain dripping down her face. "When I was 12, I made a promise by the river. A promise I shouldn't have made. Now, every new moon, the goddess reminds me. If I don't feed her what she asks, she feeds on me." They stared at her in horror. "So you kill the goats?" She nodded slowly. "To stay alive." For a moment, the rain fell harder, drowning their words. Then Amaka whispered, "If you tell anyone, she'll come for you too." The boys ran, terrified, tripping through the mud. When they reached the village, no words came out, only trembling and silence. But the next morning, the entire village gathered again. Someone had found something near the river, a red wrapper floating beside fresh goat bones. And from that day, whispers of Amaka the goat thief turned into something darker. Some said she was cursed. Others said she was chosen. But one thing was certain, Umueze would never sleep peacefully again. By dawn, Umueze had changed. The once cheerful square was now filled with whispers, trembling fingers, and fearful glances. The boys, Ikena and Chijioke, sat on the ground, knees shaking as they told the elders what they saw. Papa Nwok spoke softly. "So, you're saying Amaka, our Amaka, has been feeding the river goddess with our goats?" The boys nodded, eyes wide. The chief slammed his staff. "Lies. That girl cannot even kill a chicken." But before he could speak again, Amaka appeared from the forest path, barefoot, her red wrapper soaked in river water. The villagers stepped back. "Amaka," the chief said, voice trembling slightly, "where were you last night?" She looked up, her eyes distant. "At the river," she said quietly. "And yes, everything they said is true." Gas spread through the crowd like fire on dry grass. "I didn't steal for greed," she continued. "I stole because my life depends on it." Papa Nwok's voice trembled. "Explain, child, before fear consumes us all." She took a deep breath, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You all remember the drought, 12 years ago? When the river dried and we prayed for rain?" They nodded. "I was 12. I went to the river and made a promise that I'd offer something living every full moon if the goddess saved us. That night, the rains came. Since then, she never stopped asking." Silence. Heavy and cold. Then Mama Ijak screamed, "So our goats paid for your life?" Amaka dropped to her knees. "I didn't want this. I begged her to stop. But each moon, the hunger comes, and if I resist, I bleed water until I faint." The chief's face was stone. "Then tonight, we'll find out if your goddess truly owns you." That night, the village gathered by the riverbank under a full moon. The water shimmered unnaturally bright. The air smelled of wet earth and secrets. Amaka stood at the edge, her wrists tied with palm fronds. The priest, Izudo, began to chant prayers, sprinkling ash and salt. "River goddess of Umueze," he cried, "release this girl from your chains." The river rippled. A soft, melodic laughter filled the air, a woman's voice, deep and echoing. "She promised me," the voice hissed. "Her blood belongs to the water." The crowd screamed. Some ran. The chief held his staff tight, trembling. Amaka cried out, "Please. I've served you enough." The river surged, waves splashing violently. From its depths rose a figure, beautiful and terrible, her skin glistening like silver fish scales, eyes glowing like blue fire. "You were my chosen one, Amaka," the goddess said. "You betrayed me with love." Amaka's voice cracked. "Love isn't betrayal." The goddess pointed toward the forest. "Then why hide your lover from me?" Gas spread through the crowd as Nemdi stepped forward, his face pale. I only wanted to save her," he stammered. The goddess laughed cruelly. You're no man. You're mine." Her words rippled the air. Before anyone could react, Nemdi's body twisted into mist and vanished into the river. Amaka screamed. "No. Bring him back." But the goddess was gone, leaving only silence, and a red wrapper floating on the water. After that night, Amaka was never the same. Her laughter disappeared. Her eyes turned hollow. Every full moon, she locked herself inside, shivering, whispering prayers that no longer worked. But one fateful night, Okoro the watchman, still seeking proof, hid behind her hut. When the moon reached its peak, he heard her crying. Then, slowly, her sobs turned into laughter, not hers, but something deeper, echoing. He peeked through a crack and froze. Her skin shimmered under the moonlight. Veins glowed like rivers of light. Her eyes turned silver. She walked into the forest barefoot, and the goats, from every compound nearby, began to move, one by one, following her silently. Okoro trembled, clutching his spear. By the ancestors, she's not human anymore. He ran to wake the chief, but by the time they returned, she was standing by the river, surrounded by dozens of goats, all staring at her like they understood her. "Go back," she cried. "I don't want this anymore." But the river roared, and her body convulsed. She fell to her knees, screaming. When she rose, her voice wasn't hers. "Bring them," it said. And one by one, the goats walked into the water, disappearing beneath the waves. The next morning, Amaka woke by the riverbank, weak and trembling. To her surprise, Nemdi was there, alive. "Nemdi," she whispered. He smiled faintly. "She released me. Said I could live if I brought her what she wants." Her eyes widened. "What she wants? You can't." "I'm sorry," he interrupted, stepping closer. "I had no choice." From his bag, he pulled a small gourd filled with glowing blue water, the river goddess's mark. "She said if I spill this, your curse ends, but so does your life." Tears filled her eyes. "Then let me die." He shook his head. "I can't. I love you too much to lose you, even if you're cursed." Amaka stepped back, shaking. "Love that kills isn't love, Nemdi." But before he could answer, the gourd cracked open in his hands, spilling the luminous water. A scream tore through the air, hers. She fell to the ground, clutching her chest as the goddess's voice thundered, "You dare betray me again." The wind howled, and Nemdi vanished once more, this time, for good. By dawn, Amaka's hut was empty. Only her anklets remained, lying cold on the floor. But deep within the forest, beneath the mist, she awoke, not in her hut, but in a glowing chamber of water and light. The river spirits surrounded her, their faces both beautiful and terrifying. A tall one stepped forward. "Amaka of Umueze, you were chosen to serve. Yet you disobeyed." She tried to speak, but her voice was gone. "You have one last chance," the spirit said. "Steal for 7 more moons, and your life will be spared. Refuse, and the goddess will claim your heart." Amaka closed her eyes. "Then take it. I'm done stealing." The spirits laughed, their voices echoing like waves. "We'll see how strong your heart truly is." And with a flash of light, she was thrown back into the village square, unconscious, but alive. The villagers gathered around her, afraid to touch her. Her eyes fluttered open, and she whispered, "The spirits gave me 7 moons. After that, if I can't break the curse, they'll take my heart." Then she smiled faintly, almost peacefully, before fainting again. And as the villagers stared, Papa Nwoke whispered, 7 moons of mercy, or 7 moons of death. When Amaka awoke the next morning, the entire village stood outside her hut. Men held sticks. Women held stones. Children hid behind their mothers. The chief stepped forward. "We cannot live with a witch among us. You've brought death to our animals and curses to our homes." Amaka struggled to sit up, her voice trembling. "Please, I didn't choose this. The goddess, she." But Mama Ijike interrupted, her voice sharp. "The goddess didn't eat my goat, you did." The crowd roared in agreement. Someone threw a stone, it struck Amaka's shoulder. She winced but didn't cry. Papa Nwoke stepped between them. Enough, he shouted. We will not kill her. If she's cursed, then only the gods can judge her. The chief frowned but nodded slowly. Then she must leave Umueze before sunset. Let her curse follow her to the forest, not us. As the crowd dispersed, Amaka knelt on the ground, whispering, where will I go? The river follows me everywhere. Papa Nok placed a trembling hand on her shoulder. Then fight, child. For once in your life, fight back. That night, Amaka packed her things, just a wrapper, a calabash of water, and her mother's anklets. As she walked away, the village bell tolled behind her, marking her exile. But from the shadows, someone was watching, Odinigbo, the hunter who once warned them. Amaka found shelter in the forest, beside the forbidden river. For weeks, she lived alone, no fire, no laughter, only the whispers of the water. One night, Odinigbo appeared with a lantern. You should not be here, he said softly. She laughed bitterly. Where else should I be? I belong nowhere, not to the living, not to the spirits. He sat beside her. There might be a way to end this curse. I once heard of a ritual, one that can cleanse a soul bound by water. Her eyes flickered with hope. Tell me. It requires the blood of the last goat you'll ever steal, but it must be given willingly, not taken. She frowned. A goat that gives itself. He nodded. It must choose you, not out of fear, but trust. Amaka looked at the river, the moon reflecting on its surface like an eye. If I fail, then you die, he said simply. She smiled sadly. Then I have nothing to lose. From that night, she began to pray, not to the river, but to the heavens. She sang softly every dawn, calling out for mercy, for a sign, for hope. On the seventh moon, the air grew still. Not even the crickets dared to sing. Amaka knelt by the river, her heart heavy. If the gods are listening, she whispered, show me the one. Moments later, a white goat walked out of the forest, pure, spotless, and calm. It approached her slowly, eyes gentle, and lay beside her feet. Tears filled her eyes. You came willingly. The goat bleated softly, as if answering. Odinigbo emerged from the shadows, stunned. The chosen one, he murmured. Amaka stroked the goat's head gently. Forgive me, she whispered, but I must do this to live, or to die free. She raised the blade, her hands trembling. Lightning flashed across the sky, and thunder rumbled like angry drums. When the blade touched the goat's neck, the river erupted, waves crashing, wind howling. The goat didn't resist, it looked into her eyes until the end. Amaka cried out, take me instead. But the river swallowed her scream, pulling her under. The water glowed red, then blue, then finally, clear as glass. When the storm ended, only silence remained. At sunrise, the villagers gathered by the riverbank, drawn by the strange calm. The water that once frothed with rage now flowed crystal clear. The smell of death had lifted. Papa Nok dipped his hand in and gasped. The curse, it's broken. Then someone shouted, look. Amaka lay by the shore, unconscious but breathing. Her red wrapper was gone, replaced by a white cloth. Her anklets gleamed faintly like silver. The villagers carried her back, silent with awe. For the first time, goats graze freely without fear. Even Mama Ijak wept as she said, she saved us. When Amaka finally woke, she looked around weakly. Am I still in Umueze? Papa Nok smiled through tears. You never truly left, child. The gods have returned you, cleansed. She sat up slowly. And the goddess? The river is quiet, he said. Perhaps she's gone forever. Amaka looked toward the horizon, whispering, no, she's not gone. She's resting, and watching. Then she smiled, her first real smile in months. Years passed, and Amaka became a legend, not of theft, but of redemption. She rebuilt her hut by the river, teaching children to sing, planting flowers along the path goats once feared to walk. Every full moon, she would release a white goat into the forest, a symbol of peace, not sacrifice. When travelers came, they'd ask, "Is it true a girl once stole goats to feed a goddess?" The villagers would laugh softly and say, "Yes, but she also fed our souls with forgiveness." Papa Nwok, now too old to walk far, would often tell her story to the young ones. He'd end every retelling with a proverb. Even a thief may be a servant of destiny, for sometimes, the hands that steal are the ones saving a heart. Before Amaka's death, she built a small shrine beside the river, not to the goddess, but to mercy. On the stone she carved, "If you ever lose your way, listen to the river, it remembers everything, but it forgives too." On the night she passed, the river glowed again, softly, peacefully. The villagers said they saw her spirit walking across the water, barefoot, holding a white goat in her arms. And to this day, every child born near Umueze is told never to mock the name Amaka, because once, a girl who was loved by all became the one who saved them all. Now, when the moon rises over Umueze and laughter echoes through the forest, the elders smile knowingly and whisper, "She's here again, the girl who stole our goats, but stole our hearts first." The end.